Welcome to Waypoints, the podcast of fly fishing travel. With helpful travel tips, news and events, destination profiles, great stories, and expert advice from seasoned and experienced traveling anglers, this is your backstage pass to the world of fishing travel. Waypoints is fueled by adventure and brought to you by Yellow Dog Fly Fishing, a hands-on specialty travel and booking company that delivers the industry's very best insider knowledge, logistical support, and trip preparation. Freshwater or saltwater, international or domestic, Yellow Dog has you covered. And now your host, Yellow Dog founder and director, Jim Klug.
Welcome to Waypoints. I'm joined today by Shaun Lawson, the Yucatán Peninsula and Mexico specialist for Yellow Dog Fly Fishing. Shaun is one of the most experienced professionals in the travel world when it comes to booking and arranging trips to the Yucatán, Baja, and several other areas throughout Mexico. And each year he assists hundreds of people with finding the best fishing possible in such legendary places as Ascension Bay, Espiritu Santo Bay, Chetumal, the Tarpon Waters of the northern Yucatán, and of course the Silla Cortez and the Baja Peninsula. We'll be talking with Shaun about the realities of fishing throughout Mexico, including recommendations on the best times of year, species information, thoughts on the right gear and equipment, and a discussion of safety issues and realities. Shaun grew up on the Henry's Fork River in Idaho, and when we say grew up on the river, that's exactly what it means. His father, Mike Lawson, opened Henry's Fork Anglers in 1976, and Shaun spent every summer on the water from the time that he could walk. Shaun's resume includes more than 20 years of guiding in Montana and Idaho, and several years as the fishing operations manager for Idaho's South Fork Lodge. There are very few people in the fishing industry as knowledgeable and experienced as Shaun, and you would be hard-pressed to find a more inspired and outgoing angler anywhere in the game. So Shaun, welcome to the program.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jim.
Well, it's good to have you here today. So Shaun, you hear about people growing up in fly fishing, and you not only grew up in the sport, but you quite literally grew up in the industry, which is unusual. Tell us a little bit about your childhood and what it was like growing up in the Lawson household.
Oh, I think as kids, we take everything for granted, right? I've learned to appreciate things more as I've grown up, certainly. It was a great childhood. I spent my summers kind of, chasing butterflies and fishing. It's about all there really was to do. It was a true mom and pop business, so my parents were working a lot. And, I remember as a young kid, my father would rig me up with a Pelmorny Dun and send me across the road. And, I'd flail at the water until I had a bird's nest from the, fly all the way into the backing. And then I'd walk over, he'd kind of patiently untangle it and send me back across the road with the fly. So I don't know, I guess I kind of started with the dry fly game just because that was the water that was right there in front of our fly shop, located right on the river in Last Chance, Idaho.
It's kind of the holy waters right there.
Yeah. I didn't really know it at the time, but, as a young kid, I don't know, I think it was 10 or 11 when it really clicked, and I kind of figured out what the big fish looked like and where they'd hold. I wasn't able to wear waders until I was 14. So I just post up near a little inlet to a canal that's right there in Last Chance, and these big fish would move in there when the bugs would hatch, and I'd just post up in the grass and, literally hook fish just right off the rod tip.
Pretty cool childhood.
It was, yeah. I mean, it was, I started guiding at the age of 18, and it was a real challenge because I had no idea how to fish with a bobber, believe it or not. So the indicator fishing to me was new, and I had to learn it in order to guide anglers.
Yeah, almost backwards from the way kids learn today. That's pretty cool, though. Yeah. And what a great place to learn and surrounded by so many legendary guides. And of course, your father. I mean, let's talk a little bit about your parents. Your dad, Mike Lawson, that's a name that in so many ways is synonymous with the evolution of fly fishing in the U.S. West.
Yeah, I mean, he's really worked hard and built a great business and a name for himself. His father introduced him to fly fishing. He grew up in a small community called Sugar City, Idaho, which was about an hour south of the railroad ranch. And so he'd spent a lot of time there as a kid and developed a love for fishing, and, worked in the forest there by the ranch as a surveyor for the Forest Service, did some guiding for Jim Danskin in Yellowstone, and there were actually permits available on the Henry's Fork, so we applied for one, and him and my grandfather built this log building in Last Chance, and away we went.
Rest is history.
Yeah,
it's a lot of generations of Lawsons on the Henry's Fork. It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Well, these days you run the Yucatan and Mexico programs for Yellow Dog, and you send a ton of people south each year. I want to start right off with a question that seems to come up all the time regarding Mexico, and that is the safety issue. So what's the deal, and just how safe is it to travel to the areas in Mexico that are popular with anglers?
That's a great question. That's something that I deal with on a daily basis. People have a lot of concern, I think, just leaving the country, and then with the Mexico particularly, the cartel news down there has really been kind of over sensationalized by our 24-hour news machine up here in the States, and they just love to gobble up any kind of negative news from Mexico. And the reality of it is the Yucatan's incredibly safe to travel to. In fact, you're more safe in the Yucatan than you are in a variety of our American cities, where you'll find crime rates that are actually much higher.
Well, that's right. And, we were going through some statistics looking at this. And one of the things that's interesting is there are 32 states that comprise Mexico, right, in the country down there. The three with the absolute lowest crime rates in Mexico are Quintana Roo, the state of Yucatan, and Campeche. And these are the three states that collectively comprise the entire Yucatan Peninsula. So lowest crime rates in the whole country.
No, it's really true. And the reality of that crime down there is it truly is a kind of gang on gang, violence that's occurring, and we see that in the States a lot.
Yeah, and it's drug related. I mean, the vast majority of violent crime in Mexico and in our country as well, it's drug related.
It really is. It really is. The reality in Mexico is those cartels, they look at the tourists, not only American tourists, but any tourists come to the country as customers. Messing with tourists is on the do not do list,
That's
for
right.
the cartels. So they simply are not targeting tourists. We're not hearing of that. We're not seeing of that in the history of our operations. There hasn't been a security issue, with an abduction or anything like that in the history of the operators we represent down there.
It would be safe to say that if you're a drug dealer, Mexico can definitely be a dangerous place. But if you're an angler, the statistics show that you're incredibly safe down there.
No, it's true. And it's confined to the urban areas, very similar to what we see in the States. The area does have a level 2 travel warning that sparks the concern with a lot of people.
But what else does?
No, it's true. And
I mean, there's a lot of countries that are at level 2.
It is true. Yeah, you'll find that, countries like Germany, Spain, Italy, France have, the same travel warning. And if you read a little further, it doesn't include the beach or resort areas in the Yucatan.
Right. Well, I read an interesting statistic that talks about how there's 150,000 Americans that safely visit Mexico every single day. Yeah. And that, as you said a moment ago, the media sensationalizes stories of violence down in Mexico. But statistics-wise, it's actually safer than a lot of our major U.S. cities. And that would include Miami, Philly, Chicago, New Orleans, D.C., Atlanta. Each of these cities is statistically less safe than Mexico, and especially in places like the Yucatan.
It's absolutely the truth. It really is.
And yeah. And I know that that's a concern that people have. We get the question a lot at Yellow Dog. I know you talk to a lot of people about it, but like anything else, when you start looking at the realities, it turns out that the places where fish live in Mexico and where anglers want to go, you're incredibly safe.
No, that's true. I mean, you can find trouble in Bozeman, Montana if you want to go looking for it. That's the truth. You just want to use common sense. Apply the same safety, for yourself that you do at home.
That's right.
That's the truth.
Well, that's good. And thanks for talking to us about that. Let's change gears a little bit. If someone's looking to plan a saltwater flats adventure for the first time, okay, they haven't gone to the flats, they're new to the world of saltwater fishing, they're looking to possibly get a taste of bonefish, permit, tarpon, some of the other species, why should they consider the Yucatan?
Well, the Yucatan's, particularly the southern Yucatan, is truly one of the more diverse fisheries in the entire Caribbean. It really is. It's rare to have the population and the opportunity for consistent shots at permit, bonefish, snook, tarpon, barracuda, jacks, and a variety of other species right in the same fishery.
Well, and that's, there's a lot of great fishing to be found in the Caribbean, no doubt, but the Yucatan, really, that is kind of what it boils down to, is that high level of diversity of species.
You've got the diversity of species. There's protected fisheries. The Mexican government does have some teeth to its enforcement. We see some changes in rules and regulations in other areas, but the enforcement thing, the money to actually get people out there, checking anglers in Mexico, that they're doing that. So the protected areas there, we're seeing some. Snook, I think, is the barometer in a fishery. Numbers of snook. In most areas they're released into the cooler, because they taste so good.
Well, and you go to places like the Siancán biosphere, down south of Tulum and Punta Allen and those areas. I mean, they've done a great job of really protecting those areas, and as you said, enforcing the regulations that in turn have made those fisheries consistently good.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Well, let's talk a little bit about permit fishing, because that's another question we get a lot. And permit have really become synonymous in a lot of ways with the waters of the southern Yucatan. This is an area that certainly has become well known for permit, and they're a difficult fish to target. But what makes the permit fisheries in places like Ascension Bay, Espiritu Santo, and Chetumal so good, in your opinion?
I think number one is the protections, that the Mexican government has applied into a lot of these fisheries, and two, it's just the perfect environment for permit. You've got the second largest barrier reef right there, access to deep water, shallow flats is where they like to go to feed, and it's just the perfect environment for permit, and there's a lot of them.
Well, there are, and it's a great place to go down if you're someone who really wants to target them and try to get your first or maybe one of many on the fly.
Yeah.
They're there.
It's true. Now, and you've got the other species right there close too, that you can unplug and go bend the rod a little bit.
Well, speaking of the different species, talk to us kind of about the prime fishing season in the Yucatan and how the region fishes either consistently or differently throughout the year.
No, that's a really good question. The Yucatan truly is a year-round fishery. It's a tropical environment, with its proximity to the equator. The southeastern Yucatan, we see temperature variations of about 5 degrees year-round. So it is a year-round fishery. Seasonally, I would say tarpon and snook are really your only seasonal species. The big migratory tarpon around during the summer, kind of May through September dates, and then for whatever reason, the snook fishing in the fall and early winter is great. Just more of them out and about and more shots. As far as bonefish and permit, their feeding habits are dictated, by the conditions you're met with when you show up.
Weather.
They're always there.
They're always there.
Yeah.
And whether they're there in big numbers and you're getting lots of shots depends on things like weather, visibility, wind direction.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's
all those
true.
things we haven't figured out how to control yet.
Yeah, exactly.
So if someone wants to go down and fish the Yucatan, how do they do that? What's involved with flights and travel and transfers and kind of getting there?
Well, it's a great reason to fish the Yucatan is because it's so easy to get to, not only from the States, but other parts of the world. Flying in and out of Cancun and Merida are typically the two airports that you're looking at. Very easy access. You're usually looking at a van ride or an air charter, and some destinations also do a little boat ride, at the end.
But getting to Cancun, for example, is cheap. I mean, it's one of the cheapest tickets we see year round. The Mexican Tourism Bureau down there, they do a great job of bringing people into the area. And so there's a ton of flights from different U.S. cities. The routes are usually pretty direct, and the cost is about as good as anything you're going to find.
No, it's absolutely true. It's a great value, to look at going to the Yucatan.
So changing gears just a little bit, what are some of your top locations and lodge picks for someone that's traveling with a family or as part of a couple's trip, or maybe you have someone who's fishing, someone that's not? Are there any opportunities for this in the Yucatan? And if so, are there any good non-angling activities down there?
No, there really are. There's some really good destinations that do cater well to non-anglers. I like Grand Slam Lodge in Ascension Bay, Casa Blanca, Playa Blanca Lodge in southern Ascension Bay, Espiritu Santos Bay are great for couples and families. Eco tour, non-angling activities at the lodge. What's great with the Yucatan is you have the ability to build in a stay at one of the resorts or hotels along the Riviera Maya, and build in some ruin tours and some other activities, do a combo package, and we do a lot of those as well.
Yeah, the Mayan ruins down there are awesome.
Oh, yeah. No, it's a great area for couples and families. It truly is.
Now, how about kids as far as the fishing aspect goes? Is it a good place to bring kids for maybe a first-time saltwater trip?
I think so. It truly is because of the diversity, the access to bonefish and other species that are easy to catch. Saltwater flats fishing can be tough. For kids, I definitely recommend getting them going on some trout out on the Yellowstone River in Montana or something first before you introduce them to the saltwater game. But I think the Yucatan's one of the best places to go.
Yeah, and I know that at Yellow Dog, we run some family trips down there every year and some hosted kids trips, which are pretty neat. And everybody really seems to enjoy it and catch fish, which is not always easy in the world of saltwater.
No, it's true.
So I'm going to throw another curveball at you here, Shaun, and I want to talk about another issue and situation that you've been dealing with in the Yucatan for the past couple of seasons, and that's the sargasso grass. And if people don't know what this is a natural phenomenon of floating mats of weeds, of seagrass, that have been impacting a number of countries and fisheries all throughout the Caribbean. So talk to us a little bit about the sargasso issue specific to the Yucatan Peninsula.
No, it's definitely a concern. It's something that we've seen, increase in prevalence as far as the episodes of the grass coming in. It's a deep sea grass, and the more research and studying they're doing on this, they're finding it's from fertilizer and
nitrates and stuff like that.
Coming from a lot of these big freshwater rivers, that inevitably find their way into the Caribbean. But from a fishing standpoint, we're not seeing a negative result, on the fishery, as a result of the moss. In fact, it can improve your fishing for tarpon and permit. These moss mats contain a lot of crustaceans and bait fish, that are there and available, and kind of concentrate the tarpon, especially the migratory fish during the summer.
They seem to like the grass.
Yeah.
So there are some positives to it, but the negative, of course, is you get the buildup along the beaches, and there's just tons of this stuff that comes in there. These big floating rafts, and really the most detrimental effect is it just kind of stinks.
That's the truth. It's tough on the beaches. I think the resorts that cater to people that are just looking to lay in the sand and get some sun, they're having a tough time because it does pile up. It's hard for them to clean the beaches. In some areas, there's just simply no place to put it, and there's a little bit of a sulfur odor.
But it's a natural kind of ebb and flow occurrence where it's there, one season, maybe a little bit heavier in the next season, or even with just a singular big wind event, a lot of it can move out and be gone.
That's true. Yeah. The storms and the wind events move it along.
Yeah. Well, and this fall we'll probably see some of that, I would assume. Yeah. We usually do.
Absolutely.
We usually do. Well, that's a good question on the sargasso grass. I know that's something that people have been asking about. Let's change the subject a little bit and talk about equipment specific to this area and to these fisheries. What's kind of your go-to Yucatan setups with regards to rods and reels?
Oh, that's a great question. Because of the diversity of the fisheries in the southern Yucatan, they are demanding on your gear and equipment that's required for the trip. If you want to take full advantage of those fisheries, they do require several tackle setups. So you definitely want to have a bonefish rod. If you're fishing with a partner too, you have an opportunity to wade. For bonefish.
It's like a good 8-weight.
Nice 8-weight. Okay. A 9. For permit, I like a 10 for permit if it's windy at all, out there. A 9's a great rod for your backcountry baby tarpon snook setup. And then if you get into the migratory tarpon, a 10 or an 11 is kind of what we want to go with. I typically have a toothy critter setup in the boat too, a 9 or a 10 with the wire and a gurgler, chartreuse popper or something.
So that's good. And then, really it's about having a quiver, having several rods, because you might be out in the Ponga with your guide and, he's pulling along looking for permit, and all of a sudden you find tarpon on the edge of the flat. So to be able to put down that 9 weight and quickly pick up, a 10 or an 11 for tarpon, you're in the game.
Oh, it's crucial. Yeah, those days on the flats go quick, so you don't want to take the time to switch a leader, to change species.
And that's huge.
It's going to cost you shots.
It's going to cost you shots. Yeah. That's exactly right. And we talk to people that say, my 9 will work for bones and permit. And that's true. Yeah. But let's say you've got, a size 6, a little gotcha. You're fishing specifically for bones, and all of a sudden, here comes a school of 4 or 6 permit. Mm-hmm. They're riding a little bit deeper. You're going to need a bigger, heavier fly, whether it's a shrimp pattern or a crab pattern, whatever you're throwing. If you turn around to your guide and say, hey, hold on a sec, I'm going to change leaders and quickly retie, well, you've lost your shot. Those fish have moved on.
No, it's true. In fact, I'll often strip out a permit rod when I'm bone fishing. Have all the slack line out, on the boat ready to go, because when you see those permit, the window is slamming shut.
That's right.
Yeah.
And to be able to quickly, exchange one tool for the other keeps you in the game.
Yeah. True.
That's important. So do you have to bring all of your own gear with you to these different lodges down there, or do any of them provide gear? How does that work for most clients?
That's a good question. Some do, some don't. We have lodges that do a great job with the rental gear, have quality equipment that's available so you don't have to travel with it. Some lodges don't have gear. We work with a great company called Rent This Rod, and they can get some equipment in your hand before you go, so your first cast at that permit with a 10 weight isn't, when you're on the deck of a skiff.
That's right.
There's a lot of value in that.
There is. And really it's just kind of destination and lodge specific. So always a good question to ask when you're planning your trip is, hey, does the lodge where I'm visiting, do they have loaner or demo equipment? Do they sell flies? Yeah. But it's kind of varies by destination and
Absolutely.
lodge.
Okay. Absolutely. And on the same subject, the Mexican TSA has just recently started to enforce the 4 rod limit per angler.
Yeah, this is strange. Talk a little bit about this.
In and out of Cancun. So you are only allowed 4 rod and reel setups per angler, and they literally just Google the retail value of any additional equipment and charge you 18% duty.
Really? I've never heard of this anywhere else in the world.
They just started doing this in the last couple months. We're getting some reports of it. And it also pertains to photographers too. No more than 2 bodies and camera bodies as
Interesting.
Well. Yeah.
So if you're the tech gearhead that travels with a dozen different rod setups, you might want to disperse that amongst your buddies that you're going with.
Correct. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's really good advice and good for travelers to remember that 4 rod and reel maximum as far as bringing it into the country. Yeah. All right. So how about overall trip costs? Now, we talked a little bit about the affordability of flights in and out of Cancun, really high value there. But where do destinations in the Yucatan rate compared to other saltwater destinations for, let's say, a week-long all-inclusive lodge package?
I'd say that Yucatan is comparable to, fisheries like Belize and the Bahamas, just as far as your different levels of accommodations and packages. High end to low end.
So you might be anywhere from like $3,000 to $4,000 for a week long all inclusive trip.
True. Yeah. Yeah. Kind of 3 to 5.
3 to 5
with the window you're in, but with the travel costs in and out of Cancun being what they are. I mean, it certainly one of the better values you can find. Anywhere in saltwater fishing. And
then there are certain kind of shoulder seasons, like the late summer or fall, when some of the lodges down there will run some specials.
That's true.
So a great way to save money there and find some really good values.
No, it's true. Yeah, the rate structures of the lodges are a little misleading. Their peak rates are developed for that travel demand when everyone wants to go.
Right.
But there's some great fishing to be had in the summer and fall, and you can go at a value.
Well, and you can go down and find fisheries that are largely devoid of people.
True.
People are staying home, close to home in the States here in the summer when the fishing is good here, not necessarily thinking about hitting the Yucatan. And you can save a bunch of money if you look at some of those productive times.
No, it's true. And it's not as uncomfortably hot as most people presume. In fact, you may run into warmer weather in Craig, Montana in July.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah. People have that conception that it's just sweltering hot down there. But as you said at the beginning of the program here, there might be a 5-degree variation
True.
between different seasons down there. So that's good to know. Timing right there. So we've covered the Yucatan pretty well. We've talked a lot about that. Let's talk for just a few minutes about some of the other Mexico destinations, some that are oftentimes overlooked. So first off, let me ask you about the tarpon fisheries in the northern parts of the Yucatan Peninsula, like Campeche, Isla Holbox, some of these areas that are specifically kind of tarpon destinations.
No, it's true. The north and the west side of the Yucatans, while you're not going to find the diversity that you do in Ascension Bay, further south, they're incredible tarpon fisheries with some snook. I'd also add San Felipe, Isla Reina, Tarpon Island, and then, over in the Tabasco state as well.
And these aren't necessarily triple-digit tarpon. They're more kind of the juvenile baby tarpon to the mid-sized tarpon. But what this area is known for is numbers.
It's true. Yeah. What we see in the tarpon nurseries are tarpon that range from 3 to 15 to 20 on the top end. When the tarpon get to be 20 pounds or so, they kind of start running with the big fish, and leave the mangroves. And so you've got access to those baby tarpon, in that 3 to 20 pound range, year round, good numbers.
And if you haven't done a lot of tarpon fishing before, or you're new to it, this is a great destination to go down and really kind of learn, because a 10-pound tarpon is going to display the same eating and feeding behaviors as the bigger tarpon. They're still going to jump. They're acrobatic. They're strong. But you can be on them kind of throughout the course of a day, have a lot of shots, typically a good number of hookups, and you're really kind of learning the ins and outs of tarpon fishing in a manageable way.
No, that's absolutely true. In fact, these juvenile tarpon, in my opinion, are a heck of a lot harder to keep on the line than a big fish. I mean, they go ballistic when you hook them.
And it's all visual. It's mostly sight fishing.
Absolutely great. And topwater stuff, too,
So very cool. Yeah. So if you're looking really to kind of build your tarpon game and get some numbers under your belt, that northern and western coast of the Yucatan is a great option.
Absolutely.
All right. Now, a little bit further to the west of that is a fishery that I know you've spent time in. It's fairly new to your program, but that's Tabasco. Tell us a little bit about that one.
That's true. The Tabasco fishery is very unique. It's a freshwater river system, and it is real Mexico over there. But I can't think of a better fishery for someone who has never seen a tarpon, a kid, first time saltwater angler. Just the numbers of fish there were pretty impressive. Not big fish,
but a lot of them.
A lot of them. And beautiful area, 100-foot tall mangrove trees, howler monkeys.
And no tourists.
No tourists, zero. Yeah, real Mexico. And we've just got a fantastic operator down there that really takes incredible care of folks, too.
The Tabasco area. That's pretty cool. So here's another one that a lot of people haven't heard of. And really, when you go to this destination, you don't feel like you're anywhere close to Mexico or even the Caribbean for that matter, and that's Scorpion Atoll.
No, that's true. You and I actually had a chance to visit the atoll together for the first time. I mean, I was incredibly impressed with that, just blown away, by the remote nature of that fishery and the numbers of shots of tailing permit on foot, which is hard to find. Usually you're in deeper water on the deck of a skiff or a panga.
So where is Scorpion Atoll? Tell us that.
Logistically, it's directly north of kind of that,
Progreso.
Far northwest corner of the Yucatan.
Got it.
So directly north of Merida.
Yeah. And you get there, you fly into Merida, you take a quick van ride to the port city of Progreso, and then it's a couple hours out to the atoll from there.
That's true. It's an 80-mile ocean crossing, so it's out there. It's an exposed atoll. There's no trees. In fact, they call it a scorpion atoll, not because there's scorpions running everywhere. It's because a lot of ships used to crash out there. In fact, there's several big tanker wrecks that you'll see when you're there. So that, they named it Scorpion Atoll because if you landed there, you die a slow death, like poisoning from a sting.
That's right.
Because of the lack of water. There's zero water out there.
And it is incredible. I remember the first time I saw Scorpion Atoll, I think I was flying south to Belize or Honduras, and I looked out, at 33,000 feet out of the window of the plane, and I thought, oh my God, what is that down there? I mean, it's this gorgeous atoll. It's clearly got flats. It's out in the middle of nowhere. And you think, well, I've got to fish that. That looks amazing. And now we have an outfitter down there. He's running liveaboard trips, and it is an exotic trip. It is really super cool.
No, it's great. It's a wade fishing only destination currently. He's in the process of trying to develop some boats that he can tow out there to be able to pull anglers around. But the chance at Bahamas-sized bonefish, permit on foot, and your other species are kind of sharks, kudas, there's jacks, no tarpon or snook because of the lack of fresh water.
But beautiful and so far removed from the normal places that people think of with regards to the Yucatan or even the Caribbean for that matter.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Now, how about Baja and the Baja Peninsula? Talk to us about that and give us the real deal on Baja.
No, we get a lot of folks contacting us about Baja, and a lot of them that we talk to are looking to go down there and fish on their own. They're going to run down there. They've seen, these movies of guys running up and down the beach and just rooster fish hooked up all day. And so there's really a lot of tension drawn to that beach fishing right now down there. And the reality of that is it's a tough game, and I kind of say it's similar to permit fishing, just as far as your expectation levels. And it's not necessarily something you really want to do on your own, in my opinion, down there. But
it's not easy fishing.
It's not easy fishing,
Got to bring your big boy pants if you're going to fish the beaches for big roosters.
For sure. Unique fishery in that the blue water's so close, so it's the ability to catch roosters, jacks, and the pelagic species like marlin, wahoo, mahi-mahi, tuna, all within, a few miles of shore, which is very unique.
And a lot of times, as you just said, people have this vision of being out on these isolated beaches by themselves. There's some pressure down there. There's more and more people that are going down to fish it. And really, the key to success down there is coming up with the right combination where you might be doing some beach fishing for a couple of the days and moving up and down by ATV or the Polarises that they drive on the beaches with, but you also want to maybe mix that up with some ponga fishing or offshore fishing to really be able to find some different species and enjoy some success.
No, absolutely, and you've got the ability to do just that. Great captains who cater to fly fishing, and can get you on the fish. It's similar to a lot of the blue water fishing, on a fly. They'll use a teaser, throw a bait caster with a plug, no hook. They'll use live bait, to chum the fish up, get them in close.
Get them feeding on the surface, and then you put the fly in there.
Yeah, and that's kind of the game. But I would definitely recommend to do a mix of both. If you do want to do the beach fishing, also plan a couple ponga days.
Good advice. Yeah. And is there a season for Baja? What's the time to go down there, or when do most people think of kind of fishing Baja?
Down in Baja, the wind kind of dictates the fly fishing game down there, and especially on the East Cape and Sea Cortez side. I think there's more consistent fishing year-round on the west side, right out of Cabo San Lucas. But on the East Cape, you want to focus on the months of April, May, June, early July, and then again, they kind of have the rainy season midsummer, so you run into some clouds and rain, and then kind of late September and October. And then, the rest of the year, the winds are blowing, and that's when the surfers go, so you kind of want to avoid the other months on the East Cape.
So with your program, anything new down in Baja or new with your offerings lately?
We actually have a great package offering that's a little further north on the Sea Cortez side, logistically about an hour south of La Paz. It's called Baja de los Sueños, the Bay of Dreams, and it's an incredible package opportunity. Great operator. It's been fishing the area for about 30 years. Very nice hotel. Includes all the food. Pangas pick you up on the beach. Also has a beach for some beach fishing. And the hotel's located on a beach that provides consistent shots at roosters, jacks, pompano, and other species.
So that's cool. That's a new offering for you that you've put out there, and people can call you for more information about that.
That's true.
Right
yeah,
on.
Give us a shout.
Well, Baja is an exciting place. And, it's one of those things you hear a lot about it, but you have to kind of really cut through, the noise with Baja and figure out what the realities are and what expectations you should have when you go down there. Yeah. That's so key.
Yeah, absolutely. And timing's crucial, especially if you're looking to fish the East Cape side. Yeah.
That's right, time of year. Well, that's great on Baja. So we're going to kind of wrap things up here. But before we do, give me 3 final takeaways, Shaun. 3 key pieces of advice for planning a successful trip down to Mexico, be it the Yucatán, the Tarpon Coast we were talking about, Baja, or even Scorpion Atoll. Give us 3 takeaways.
I would say number 1, do your homework. Give Yellow Dog a call. We can help you out. You definitely want to do your research and make sure it's the right destination for you, the right fishery for you. I'd say, secondly, practice your casting. Don't wait until you show up and you've got a tailing permit that's, within the crosswind out there at about 30 feet, because you're not going to make that cast. Get out in the yard, go to the park on a windy day and practice casting those big rods. You definitely want to practice your casting. I'd say number 3, just make sure you come prepared. Prepare for your travel, the destination area you're going to, and make sure you've got the right equipment, flies, tackle, everything that's required, things you might not find on site.
Right on. Well, good advice right there in Mexico. So I have one final question for you, Shaun. Why fly fishing? What's the draw and the connection for you to this sport on a personal level?
Yeah, fly fishing for me has been my whole life, honestly. That's the reality of it. It's an incredible sport, provides a lot of therapy, I think. And I hear that with a lot of the people that I talk to at Yellow Dog. It's great for families. Some of the best memories I have with my folks, my brother, sister, my kids, are on the water. And for me personally, it's just been always a way to kind of clear my head, get off alone. And it's not necessarily about the fishing, just getting out on the water, seeing the birds, and just being out there, takes you to beautiful and great places.
Right on. Well, there it is. It is beautiful and great places. And thanks so much for sitting with us today, Shaun. We appreciate it. Great advice on fishing in Mexico, throughout the Yucatan, all these areas. And if people have questions, they can reach out to you at Yellow Dog for more information.
Yeah, thanks.
Good.
Give me a call.
Right on. Well, that's it for this episode of Waypoints. Be sure to visit yellowdogflyfishing.com to plan and research your next fishing trip, and to sign up for newsletters and notifications and new podcast episodes delivered right to your inbox. You can also download the latest Yellow Dog catalog, check out the travel blog, and sign up for insider deals and specials. Be sure to join us for our next episode of Waypoints, and remember, no matter where you go or what you're doing, get outside and get on the water, because no one ever regretted a life of adventure.
This has been another episode of Waypoints, the podcast of fly fishing travel and adventure angling. Thank you for joining us, and be sure to visit yellowdogflyfishing.com for more trip updates, travel news, expert advice, and adventure profiles.